The night I finally understood what had been taken from me, I was sitting alone at 1 a.m., staring at files I had built from nothing. My name had been removed from all of them. My name is Eleanor Vance. I'm 33 years old. For years, I was the woman behind nearly every success my husband Ethan claimed as his own. I designed the floor plans. I saved the presentations. I worked through the nights while he walked onto the stages and collected the applause. The night of the Plaza Hotel Gala, I was backstage making last-minute corrections to a 3D rendering, while Ethan stood in the spotlight accepting an award for work my hands had built. A young intern glanced at my screen and whispered to a colleague. This project had her signature all over it from the start. His colleague grabbed his sleeve. "Keep it down. You want to keep your job." I heard every word. When a journalist asked if I was the lead technical assistant, Ethan smiled before I could speak. "This is my wife. She helps out with some internal work from time to time. 5 years. Countless nights until 3 a.m. Dozens of projects pulled back from the edge of disaster from time to time. That was the night something inside me went very still. At home, Beatrice was already on the porch. Before I could take off my heels, she called out, "Eleanor, go check the kitchen. Is the prime rib the right cut?" Ethan walked in 2 steps behind me. Her tone shifted instantly. "Ethan, you must be exhausted, dear. Go up and rest." We had attended the same event, ridden in the same car. One of us was asked if he was tired. The other was sent to the kitchen. At dinner, Beatrice approved a $5,000 handbag for Chloe without hesitation. When I asked for a few $100s to replace the computer-generating income for the entire firm, she looked at me as though I had said something frivolous. "Money doesn't grow on trees, Eleanor." I looked to Ethan for one word of support. He spooned soup into his bowl. "We'll look into it later, Ellie. In some houses, it doesn't matter where the money goes. It only matters whose hands it goes into." The doubts came quietly. A late-night phone call on the balcony, his voice too low to hear. His phone placed face down on the nightstand. A new habit. A faint, unfamiliar perfume on his shirt collar. An expense report showing $3,000 charged to client relations on the exact evening he said he was entertaining clients. And Jessica Thorne. She was already at the office when I arrived early one morning. Cream-sheath dress, hair carefully styled, lipstick deliberate. Any woman knows the difference between dressing for work and dressing to be seen. I watched Ethan pause at her desk longer than necessary. I heard the way she said, "I'd love for you to look it over for me later." I saw the softness in his eyes when he answered. That afternoon, I volunteered to pick up documents from a hotel downtown. I arrived 10 minutes early. Through the revolving glass doors, Ethan was walking out. Jessica was beside him, a light beige leather handbag on her arm. The same bag I had seen invoiced on the client relations expense report. I stepped behind a marble pillar. Ethan held the car door open for her. She looked up and said something I couldn't hear. He leaned slightly and smiled, not the professional smile he used with clients. The smile of a man at ease with someone who knows exactly how to make him feel that way. I took out my phone and took photographs. My hand was not shaking. When a person reaches a certain threshold of pain, they stop reacting the way they do in the movies. No tears, no confrontation, just cold, clear seeing. That night I sat in front of my laptop until well past midnight. I had intended to check a few expense records, but the deeper I dug, the more I felt like I was pulling threads from a web that had been silently woven over my head for years. The $3,000 was not isolated. Over 6 months, irregular charges had been funneled through categories with beautiful names: strategic partner relations, key client entertainment. Combined, enough for designer handbags, lavish dinners, and hotel stays no one was meant to see. The contact person listed most frequently, Jessica Thorne. Then I opened the source files for our award-winning resort project. The master plan, the spatial organization, the lighting solutions. All of it built on layers of work I had personally finalized. But in the file metadata, my name had been removed. I checked older projects, a condominium in Queens, a development in Brooklyn, a resort in upstate New York. The pattern was identical, systematic, ongoing, deliberate. I pulled out an external hard drive and began copying everything. Original files, revision histories, expense reports, hotel invoices, a stock transfer agreement Ethan had signed years ago, a gesture he probably thought was meaningless. At the bottom of my drawer was my personal journal, 5 years of dates, breakthroughs, and meetings, documented in my own handwriting. As dawn approached, I watched the data transfer bar inch toward completion. The woman sitting in front of that screen was no longer wondering why her husband had changed. She was focused on one thought. If they were determined to erase me, I had to fight to keep my name. That evening, Ethan and Beatrice were waiting in the living room. 2 cups of tea already poured, orchids on the table. This was not a spontaneous conversation. This was an ambush. Ethan slid a stack of papers across the table. Just some internal paperwork, Ellie. I read the first document. A formal attestation stating I had only participated as an internal design support specialist on an as-needed basis, holding no rights to claim any beneficial interest in the company's creative direction. The second was a power of attorney granting them control over the coastal land my grandmother had left me. The third was a divorce settlement. Ethan declared sole owner of everything. My 5 years of professional contribution reduced to uncompensated family-based spousal support. Beatrice smiled. A woman's reputation is more valuable than property, dear. Walk away cleanly and people will respect you. I looked at her. For the first time, I saw clearly how she had always used the word class as a noose. Every time I stepped back, she called it class. Every time I held my tongue, she called it class. Now, as they tried to strip everything from me, the same word, I folded the papers neatly and set them on the table. I'm not signing any of this. Beatrice's gentle mask vanished instantly. Ethan grabbed the papers and threw them back. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Whose dignity are we protecting, I said. A man who cheated on his wife, misused company funds, and altered legal documents to erase her name? His face darkened. You have 24 hours to pack your things and get out, he said. This house belongs to the company. You have no right to anything besides your personal effects. I went upstairs, opened the hidden safe at the back of the closet. Inside was everything they didn't know existed. Original sketches, email chains, full revision histories, copyright registration documents, and the stock transfer agreement. I packed 1 suitcase, clothes, laptop, hard drive, and every folder of evidence. I left the jewelry. I didn't look at the designer dresses. Then I called my lawyer, Arthur Sterling. 15 minutes later, a black car appeared at the gate. At the front door, I turned to Beatrice one final time. You'll find out tomorrow. Some people don't leave because they're beaten. They leave because they're done being quiet. 3 days later, a video surfaced. Chloe had posted it to show off an old party and forgotten what was in the frame. A shaky clip, her laughter in the background. The camera panned across a dimly lit table where Ethan and Jessica sat close, unmistakably intimate. Then, from just off camera, Beatrice's voice. Clear as stone. Let her stay home and draft the blueprints. All the world needs to know is that this company belongs to my son. I played it twice. Saved it in 3 places. Arthur looked at me when he finished watching. This isn't just proof of an affair. This proves intent. Premeditated conspiracy to erase your professional role. The meeting at Adler Capital lasted just over an hour. I placed 3 folders in front of Marcus Adler and spoke only about the work. Original concepts, documented design evolution, functional logic. Only I understood from the inside. No mention of the affair. No mention of dinner table humiliations. Only facts. If the design firm has an internal authorship dispute and tampered documents, the primary investor carries the collateral damage. Adler asked directly, Is this a revenge play by an angry wife? I met his eyes. My marriage will be settled by the courts. When it comes to my profession, I don't bring tears to the boardroom. I bring people, data, and a plan. When we shook hands at the end, something had shifted in his eyes. It was no longer the look of a man tolerating someone's private troubles. It was the look of a man forced to recalculate everything. That evening, Beatrice threw a party. The estate fully lit, wine poured, orchids arranged, a performance of stability. It ended when Ethan's assistant rushed in, face drained of color. Adler Capital was terminating the design contract. Immediately, all payments frozen. Within minutes, the bank called. Then the material supplier. Then the contractor. The guests who had been laughing loudest were the first to find their coats. By the time the room had emptied, Beatrice sat alone in her chair staring at nothing. At the board meeting the following morning, I laid every piece of evidence on the table. The stock transfer, the revision histories, the expense reports, the video. 5 years of documented work. When the decision was read aloud, Ethan's executive authority was suspended pending a full internal audit. Beatrice was removed from all company operations. A third-party audit approved immediately. I closed my briefcase and stood. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt a profound quiet. There are some debts of honor that, once settled, don't require celebration. It is enough simply to know that from this day forward, no one will call you by the wrong name in the story of your own life. A year after the launch of Vance Architecture, I saw Ethan on a street near a small building supply store. Thinner, the polish gone. He gave a slight nod. I nodded back. That was all. 2 years later, I married quietly. We had a son. On a late autumn afternoon, I sat on our patio, watching my husband help him with his first bicycle. The boy wobbled, found his balance, and pedaled on his own, turning back with a grin that lit up the entire garden. The setting sun was the color of honey. I understood sitting there that the greatest project of my life was never a building on a blueprint. It was this. A life whose faulty foundation I tore down with my own hands, so I could rebuild it on something real. Those who sow the wind will reap the whirlwind. But the one who finds the courage to stand up will always find their way back to a life worthy of their name.